guys, man, let me get here with your Gamer Goggles. I'm with Jason Hardy again. I like these guys.
I like Matt.
And we're at Gen Con. So we're going to have some fun, and I'm going to point this in the right direction so you can actually hear us with all this noisy stuff. Maybe punch Sledge in the head once or twice.
I would not recommend that.
And we're going to talk about cool stuff, like them selling out of the tarot deck. So we didn't get to show it to you, but I believe Echo has all the art. So maybe I can get some cool pictures if she'll allow it.
We'll have a few more tomorrow, but I wouldn't bank on being able to take pictures of them the way they're going.
Yeah, I doubt it. If they're already gone,
yeah,
they're probably gone. Well, you know what? I think my buddy bought a deck. I might be able to take pictures tonight.
There we go.
All right. So we have Court of Shadows, which I can't pick up because it's too heavy.
It looks like this. It's very. I mean, we're done with the core books in Shadowrun mostly. We got the Critter book out for Origins, so we get to experiment now, and I get to try things that we haven't done and see if they work. And so Court of Shadows is our way of putting high fantasy into Shadowrun. So going to explore the meta planes using a fairy setting, but a different kind of fairy setting than I've ever seen before, and still letting Shadowrunners get into it and get involved in the high intrigue. The way I've been describing it is Shadowrun is about shooting people in the face for money. Court of Shadows is about stabbing people in the back for money. So related but different. But we really mixed up a lot of fairy creatures from mythologies all over the world, and it's related to the tarot deck too, because we developed factions within the Sealy Court that are lined up on the major arcana of the tarot. And
wow,
so we have 10 factions in there, but you know there's many more major arcana. So we also have rumors of hidden factions or factions that might emerge, and all sorts of interesting things interwoven into the tarot. So seeing how this works and how the tarot deck work and how we can make them work together is going to be a lot of fun.
I would imagine there's a couple of good discussions in there. There's tarot deck alone, there's so much to do, and then you add 2 universes. A crafty GM could do some interesting things, like use them as portals.
Well, it's possible that we talked to Echo about some of the stuff we were doing at Court of Shadows when she was making the tarot deck, so there might be some hidden information that references some of the stuff we're talking about in the book and vice versa. So
might be.
Possibly.
So what's your favorite part of Court of Shadows?
Well, I already mentioned the factions lined up among the tarot. I love that part. We actually started talking about this book a year ago at Gen Con, and I was talking with Monica Valentinelli, who did the development for the project and wrote a ton of it, and that was her idea. Because we were looking for ways to make the tarot work with Shadowrun, and then she came up with the idea, what if we had the factions aligned with the major arcana? And I thought that was such a great idea, and gave us so many ways to use the tarot deck and also build mysteries in the court, that it was a lot of fun to build up those factions, to talk about what they mean, to talk about how they operate and why they took that name of a tarot arcana. So I love that aspect about it, and I just love the mystery of it. You know, I said it was stabbing people in the back for money, but a lot of that is metaphorical, because in the Sealy Court, violence is kind of looked down on as the refuge of the incompetent, as the saying sometimes goes. That if you had to kill someone, it's because you couldn't figure out how to outsmart them. So there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of diplomacy involved in that, and I love that stuff. I absolutely love doing that social type of gaming. If you need to, you can still pull out the weaponry, but if you can outsmart people and get what you want without spilling any blood, I think that's a great way to play any Shadowrun game, and it's a lot of fun to do there.
So this is a little bit more about character development.
Yep.
Okay. Because I was going to ask, is there like new magic or a different flair to the magic in it?
Not so much new magic, but what we really had to do was figure out how the technologically based characters are going to operate there. If we take a rigger into a high fantasy setting, what are they going to do? And especially if we take a decker into a high fantasy setting, what are we going to do? We don't want them just to sit there. They have these skills. They've built up a character to be good at some things. We want players to be able to do things. And the writers were really inventive with what they came up with and how to give them skills. They built a whole alternate information system in Court of Shadows that gives deckers something to hack. So it's not computers, it's not cameras, it's not technological devices, but they still have things to hack. And I don't want to give anything away because, you know, spoilers and stuff.
So, okay, that almost makes it sound like when you play in the alternate setting, you're starting in the alternate setting. How hard is it to jump a character into the alternate setting?
Not hard at all.
Okay.
And that's how we designed it, so you could go back and forth. We specifically put some timing rules in there so that if you spend
so bizarre.
like a month in the court, then maybe a day's passed in the real world. But you can also fudge it, so you spend a month in the real world and you don't like miss 12 years or 30 months, whatever, in the court. So, little timey-wimey.
Timey-wimey acid trip?
There's a bit of an acid trip aspect to the whole thing.
I can see how somebody could use it as dreams.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's...
if you look at the back.
It looks like a dream.
Well, on the back, the title right there says
The
Falling
Falling
Dream.
Dream.
Because I was looking at how I wanted to discuss it when I wrote that back cover copy. And I was looking at dreams, and one of the common dreams that people have is falling. And that kind of indicates a state of stress or some change coming on. And I thought that really captured the state of being in the Sealy Court, where you're both free and falling in the air, but there's a little bit of panic and danger to it too. And that's a lot of what's happening in this book.
Very, very cool. It's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
I've known about it for about a month and a half, 2 months, maybe a little bit longer. And I haven't really started to grasp it until just now. So it's cool.
It is different. It's an experiment, so we're going to see what happens.
Okay,
but,
so I was going to say, is there another experiment in the works?
Well, there's always more experiments in the works. We'll see if we do more along these lines to see how it goes. But the other experiment, and I know we've talked about this one before,
Yes.
is Shadowrun Anarchy. This is actually a prototype of it, but this is the...
It even says prototype.
It says prototype, right down there. So this is the full rules for playing it, but it doesn't have character creation and character advancement. And the full version will have more characters and also more contract briefs. But if you look at the rules section of this book, it starts on page 18 and goes to page 33. And those are the rules to do everything in the game.
Oh, very cool.
So your magic rules, your combat rules, your hacking rules are all there, because really what the focus of this game is storytelling and bringing everyone in the group into contributing to the story. The example I like to use of how the mechanics support that is we put in a perception test, which, you know, a lot of games have. And usually if you do well on a perception test, what happens is the GM gives you more detailed descriptions of what you see or what you notice that you might not have been able to see. On perception tests here, if you win, a lot of times what you'll get to do is tell the GM what you see. So you might say, I'm going to take a closer look at that lock. Roll a perception test. Okay, you tell me what's on that lock if you want. And that encourages the people to contribute to the story.
Attendees, the time is now 5:30. The exhibit hall
Magic voice says it's 5:30.
30 minutes.
And there's other ways that people can contribute to the story. They can, like when I played it, they've made NPCs appear, or they've had dark storm clouds appear on the horizon that have a magical nature to them, or all sorts of weird things. And so everyone around the table can contribute, so it becomes an exercise in joint storytelling, but it also moves fast. Everyone's invested in telling a good story, and the amount of laughing that goes on at the table as people come up with cool ideas and then build on each other's cool ideas is so much fun. And I love playing this game, and I'm excited to get this version out so people can start test driving it, and then we'll have the full version later this year.
Oh, so this is kind of like a beta test.
Kind of. I didn't quite want to call it beta because I think the rules, we've already been through a lot of play testing, so the rules are in good shape. We're still open to feedback, so if people buy the prototype, we mentioned that if you go to the forums at shadowruntabletop.com and want to tell us a little bit about your experience and we learn a few things that we can tweak, then we'll tweak them. But we think the rules are in really good shape.
So what's next?
Well, next we get back into some existing patterns. We've had Deep Shadows books going for a few years where we focus on a different type of Shadowrun. We had one focus on extractions. We had one focus on wet work. So we're going to one of my particular favorite kind of Shadowruns, and that's the con game. I have loved con game stories forever, and so being able to do a full book on them, I'm looking forward to working on that. It'll be called Cutting Aces, and just talking not only about the mechanics of carrying out a con, but the whole psychology of getting someone to offer you something so you never have to ask them for the money, or you never have to ask them for what you want. They come up to you and say, please, take my money. I love that. I love that aspect.
I think it, not only for Shadowrun, but for that's something that can be used, I think, universally in a lot of games. It's something that's overlooked.
Yeah, because some of the tactics will have applicability wherever.
Yeah, we talked about this one before. I really am looking forward to that one.
And then, since we introduced a lot of new weird magic stuff in Court of Shadows, and there have been other weird magic things going on in Shadowrun, back when we closed the Watergate Rift and left the Shadim separate from their home dimension, and bug spirits have been more active against Ares. So we figured we need to talk about all of this in a book called Dark Terrors. And so some of the more demonically inclined freelancers in the pool are just rubbing their hands together with glee of, ooh, what can we unleash on people? So judging by the cool art we got for Court of Shadows and the excitement of the freelancers to write some really twisted creatures, we're going to have a lot of good plot developments and some very cool creatures in that book. And then one other preview, and this isn't necessarily an official title, but it's something I've been toying with for a long time, is a book called The Complete Trog, to give people who play trolls and orcs a handbook on how to play those characters. We'll give more life modules to use with the life module character creation system in Run Faster. We'll give more qualities, but we'll also talk about lifestyle issues, and there's some background things on what should you know if you really want to play a troll or an orc well. So it'll be both mechanics and flavor, so if you're playing one of those characters, you can really get into their heads and see how they work in the world, see where they fit in, see where they don't want to fit in, and make them more effective in the game.
That would be beneficial, I think, for those of you that want to play characters.
And we hope you do.
And truly be challenged by your character. Because what's it like to eat with orc teeth?
Exactly, that's a very good question. How do you sleep with the dermal deposits on your shoulders if you're a troll?
I had never thought of that. I have to now. That's going in my piece of fiction. Sweet! I like that. I'm looking forward to that too.
Cool.
When you say, how big are you thinking that might be?
Probably about 200 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's been one of the sources of delay. I've been thinking about this book for 3 to 5 years, but I've been trying to think of what can we do to really fill up those pages and make it useful. And I think we've got enough stuff now that we will be able to make it useful at that length. You know, it might be as low as 160, but no lower.
Well, you know, you said, you know, like, where do they want to be and stuff like that. I actually have questions like that going through my head for almost every character. So that's really a great thing to add insight to Shadowrunners.
Yeah, and we can look at setting information on a like city level for how cities treat trolls and orcs, and then also on the building level. What kind of buildings do they live in? What do they like? If you're a squatter troll, if you're a luxury troll, where do you go?
Yeah, where does a troll live? That's a good question.
Yep.
Not every place has a door big enough.
Exactly.
So, all right. I think that pretty much covers it, right? More?
I've covered the main things that were on my mind.
They've got cool dice that you've probably seen before.
We do always have dice. I don't know how many we have to sell because people keep buying stuff, which is awesome. That's what should happen.
He's not complaining.
No.
It pays him. Not complaining. But all right. Thanks, Jason.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you guys.